Okay, thank you for tuning in. 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Is that shower in the back working, Robin? I might need a cold one after this interview.
Yes, it is.
That doesn't really work, you know. That whole cold shower thing. It doesn't work. Xanet Pailet is on the phone. I hope I'm saying her name right. She has written a book called Living an Orgasmic Life. It's getting really good reviews on Amazon. And the subtitle, Heal Yourself and Awaken Your Pleasure. Xanet is a certified somatic sex and intimacy coach. I had to look up somatic. I'm not really sure still, even after looking it up, what it means. I think it has to do with the body, but she'll help us with that. She's a sexological body worker, Joe. She's a holistic pelvic care practitioner. You bringing me coffee? She's a tantra educator and a humorist. Oh, that's good. Yeah. We got that cold shower ready, Robin?
Yeah, we do. It's all set. Just waiting on you.
Xanet. Good morning, Xanet. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you? I'm great, thank you.
Robin said you're in New York. Where are you in New York?
I'm on the Upper West Side.
Ah, okay. Are you signing books today at Barnes & Noble?
I will be doing an event tomorrow night at Babeland in Soho, which is a wonderful adult toy store. That's at 7:30 tomorrow night at Babeland.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to go there, Robin. This is an adult toy store.
There you go.
I need a new adult toy.
We got one down the road.
What do you think about this whole thing with these robots, these sex brothels with robots? What is that about? I mean, what is your thought on that?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I guess it serves a purpose and need, but like for me, it feels really disconnected. You know, part of what we have problems. Yeah, I mean, part of what we have problems with is like we're not like human reconnecting with people. We're all in our cell phones and our devices, you know. And this is just like another, like, oh, just have sex with a robot. You know?
This is great. It can't be good. It just can't be. I mean, everything else that goes with it doesn't happen. I mean, you're not having conversation. You're not having dinner. I mean, all that other stuff that happens, right?
Right. Exactly. It's just like, just get the act done and you're done, you know. But there's none of the like human connection, and really you're not also getting like the touch that you want, right? I mean, it makes sex very, very like singularly focused, if you will.
Can you tell me how long ago you started this work, and if you could also add to the I guess two questions in one. Has the world changed so that your work changed? Has the changing, because we've had a lot of changes in our world regarding sex, and I'm wondering if it changed what you do.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a healthcare lawyer by training, so I actually made a huge transition in my life. And so I've been doing this work for about 7 years. In the past 7 years, I would say that, if anything, I feel like people are even more disconnected. I mean, there's two things that's happening. One is like there's more talk about sex, so it seems like people are more willing to come forward and say like, I'm having a problem, I need help. You know, there's more opportunities for help. But I also feel like people are becoming even more disconnected. I actually see it a lot with younger men. Many of whom just believe that sex happens by watching porn, like that's their education. And that's not actually the way sex happens, right? There's so many things that are not real about that.
Right,
So
right.
So I definitely am feeling like, you know, oh wow, like we get even more education to give people, and you know, the robots is just like the next step, right? You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was a young man once upon a time, and I was affected the same way you're describing, and you ladies didn't go through that because, and I don't know why. Maybe you understand the differences in us, but you're right. We were kind of taught, put that in quotes, that the way it was in those movies is the way it's going to be in real life. And it kind of gets you set up in a bad way. And really, if we didn't have that, and I'm not saying we should get rid of it, because I think, I don't know if you agree with this, maybe some guys have nothing but that, but I don't know. I think there's a right way, and the right way is actually better.
Yeah. No, I think porn serves a purpose, and it can be fun and hot and sexy. But I think there's just for some people, there's an over reliance on it, and for a lot of men who are really alone and isolated, it keeps them alone and isolated, and not actually interacting with a human female. So yeah, it's. I think it's going to become more of an issue over the next 10 or 20 years. And I think especially as the sex robot thing takes off, which no doubt it will. It already has.
What is your message regarding the hashtag Me Too movement? Is it for men or for women? What is the message that we should all be learning? What should we be learning from that?
Well, I think the message that we all need to be learning, so all over the news, is sexual violation is a violation, right. And consent needs to be a part of conversations around sex. I think that's really important, and that women need to feel safe, being able to come forward if there is a sexual violation and not feel like they're going to be re-victimized, and that we need to learn how to have consent conversations. Right, that's really, for me, one of the biggest issues. We need to learn how to have a consent conversation. Actually have a conversation, not just assume because something happened that it was actually consensual. So I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen around Me Too, and in some ways it's been very empowering for women, and in some ways it's been very scary for men.
And about the feelings of intimacy and romance, I don't think you can blame all the men. I think you can blame women too, because 2 decades ago, there was this thing, women put career first, make a timeline, make sure you got all your ducks in a row, then find a man and have babies. And that takes the spontaneity out of, all of a sudden, a relationship develops through the romance, and then the woman is the one that puts the brakes on it.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I think that's a great point, Robin. I think really, what happened was the feminist movement in some ways ended up disempowering men, because women got so empowered around their career, exactly what you're saying, and it just shifted the dynamics in the bedroom. Right? What makes for really great sex is that there's sexual polarity, meaning there's a negative and a positive charge, right? And what happened was, all of a sudden, the women who were starting to become very strong and empowered outside of the bedroom became that way in the bedroom as well. And that's not what many women want. So I think that's part of it. There have been these unintended consequences, if you will, from women being so empowered in the rest of the world. I think we need to really try to get back to a dynamic, a different place than we are right now.
Are the attitudes towards sex different in different cultures, maybe different countries? I've often thought, and here's kind of give a little reason why I'm asking the question. I've often thought that maybe by making sex taboo, we have just really screwed with our own minds. Whereas if we grew up in a country, I don't know if there is such a country, but where sex was just considered normal and made real things that should be taboo, then we wouldn't confuse sex with doing something bad. We're not bad, and I think you ladies take the brunt of it, actually. You believe somehow that you've done something horribly wrong when you have sex.
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. I think, the taboo piece started from, Judeo-Christianity, a really long time ago. Literally, it was Adam and Eve. Eve was the villain when they decided to have sex, and that sort of stuck with us for such a long time. And there is all of this taboo for women against not being a slut and keeping your legs shut and all of these other things. And there definitely are countries, particularly in the Swedish countries, in Norway, where sex is not a big deal. And they actually have sex education for kids in middle school, right? And it's a completely different culture. You look at their statistics, and they have so much more sex positivity, much less, rapes going on, much less teenage pregnancies and STDs, because it's just part and parcel of the culture. It's not that big a deal. And it creates a much more positive environment.
You have different stories in your book that look at individuals and also look at different couples from different scenarios, from emotional detachment to childbirth.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've worked with lots of different couples and individuals, and everybody has their own different situation around sex, and some of it is cultural. There are some cultures like some of the Muslim cultures where sex is just absolutely a taboo, and pleasure is kind of a taboo, and that really has a big impact on a woman when she needs a partner and wants to be able to have sex. It keeps her really sexually shut down and not able to be able to express herself or maybe even feel pleasure.
I'm wondering if maybe this now we're going to get into the cold shower part of the conversation. The women who pick up the book are going to wonder if the book will help them achieve orgasm better. The men are going to wonder what they can do to help women achieve orgasm better. It's almost like women know how to give men an orgasm and men know how to get an orgasm, but the focus of that word seems to be on women because we're confused as men, and I think you ladies are also. Tell me if I'm wrong, right, or what the book will do to help with this.
Yeah, I mean, the book will definitely have a good impact on both men and women. So while it's kind of focused on women, it will allow women to understand what's holding them back from being able to have pleasure and to have orgasms. It's often being in our head, feeling disconnected from our body. Sometimes for a lot of women, there's trauma that needs to be healed first. And for men, they'll understand more what's going on with the women. So I have very practical tips and exercises and practices for men and women to be able to practice with each other or by themselves for that matter. Because, you know this, Larry, a man just wants to please the woman, right? That's really what they're there for. They want to do that. And it's confusing because every woman is different. Right? Every woman is different, and women's arousal changes from day to day and sometimes hour to hour. So,
so men are animals and women aren't.
Well, I think we're simple compared to you. I think it's pretty simple. So
that's true. You're totally right about that.
Well, we are, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way God made us. I mean, we can go into a place with a doll and get off, I guess. I can't imagine you ladies going into a place like that, or am I wrong about that? I can't.
No, you're totally right. I mean, that's literally the truth, right? Anatomically, men wear their arousal equipment on the outside of their body, and so you're so much more in touch with your desire and your arousal, right? Especially as a teenage boy. And women are completely different. All of our stuff is inside our body.
Right.
So we are much more disconnected from our pleasure. We're much more disconnected from our desires and disconnected from our sexuality. So you're totally right. That's exactly the way it happened. And that's the way we were created.
Do you think that the TV series Sex and the City, do you think that helped sexuality for women seeking pleasure, or do you think it hurt?
Oh, that's a great question. I think in some ways it was actually really great for women, because some of the characters, Samantha, I think I talk about this in my book. She has this amazing scene where she has sushi all over her body.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and I think all of that, some of these shows really give women more permission to be sexual beings. And so I think in many ways that show was helpful, and it still created the Carrie, Cinderella fantasy myth. that our Prince Charming is out there and he's going to come and swoop us up and, you know, he's going to have $1 gazillion, right?
Right, right.
and that we need to hold off and wait for that right person to come. So I think it did, you know, I think it did both things, but it definitely was sexually empowering to women. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it did not lose the human element, though. I mean, you still have to feel like a woman. You still have to respect the man, because in the end, you're going to be best friends if you have that good relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think that was a great TV series, because everybody was coming at it from a different perspective. It was wonderful.
Do you know, I wanted to kind of paint a scenario for you, because I'm guessing it's not uncommon. In your own bio, it says you lived a sexless marriage for a couple of decades. And I want to ask you, not necessarily to be personal with you, but I mean, I think a lot of times guys think, okay, women don't really want sex, so I don't want to make my wife put up with my needs. So let me take care of it on my own, whatever that might mean. And then the woman is left out, and she's not getting sex. And meanwhile, he's thinking, well, she doesn't want it anyway. So there's a really lack of communication right there. And I don't know if that's something that you can help with the book.
Yeah.
But I mean, if a guy is doing that, oh gosh, wouldn't a wake-up call be better than a divorce?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to exactly what you said, which is communication, right? You know, like 1 in 4 couples are in a sexless marriage, in a long-term relationship. That's a lot of people, and often it's not talked about. And, you know, communication is really important, but, you know, often a lot of different things can happen that can create this. Sometimes it's just like there's a lot of emotional stuff between a couple. There's a lot of anger, there's resentment that gets built up. And the way that, and I definitely talk about this, and this is why I do this work, this is why I left the law and transitioned into this type of work, because we shouldn't have to live in a sexless marriage, because it can absolutely be changed and absolutely be healed in most cases. And we need to be talking about it. Like, hey, like, what's going on with us? Maybe we need to seek help. You know, maybe we need to, you know, start figuring out, what do we really want? Why aren't we having sex? Maybe I hate the way you touch me, and I've been afraid to tell you that. But there's a lot of different reasons why couples stop having sex. Sometimes it's like we just had a baby, and all of a sudden, like, you know, babies take up a lot of time. There's no time for intimacy, but you gotta, like, keep it on the calendar. You gotta keep on making it a priority in the relationship, if it's a priority in your marriage for long-term relationship.
When does someone ask you to help them, because you are a holistic pelvic care practitioner? When does someone ask you for that?
Nobody asks for holistic pelvic care. They don't even know what it is. But what I hear a lot from women is that they're disconnected from their sexuality, or they're feeling they've had an experience with trauma. So I do holistic pelvic care, which is a way to be able to help release mostly emotional blocks and trauma that a woman holds in her pelvic bowl. And so it's really great for moms, like new moms, because, you know, the whole pelvis shifts after having a baby. But it's also really great for women who have had surgeries, who have had hysterectomies, who have had mastectomies. Like, any place where our sexual parts have been affected gets held, that sort of that emotion of it is held in our uterus, in our womb, in our ovaries. And it's a way to help a woman release the emotional block, the emotional pain, the grief that has been unexpressed, right? So it's a very, very powerful practice. And then we also, sometimes I do internal work with it, just a little bit of internal vaginal massage to release adhesions which form around muscles to help open up the vagina so that it feels more comfortable, less painful, and that there's more like blood circulation and energy flowing.
Yeah, this is the part where I'm going to think about that shower.
Yeah.
That's the part. So, all right. So, what? This is changing the subject a little bit, but I went to Disney World last week, and Pirates of the Caribbean now has Johnny Depp in it. You know, and it was my observation that the women on the boat were very excited to see this robot. and men are always, it's always said that men are more visual than women, but yet when Johnny Depp was up there, they were excited, and I was thinking he's not even real.
He's probably just part of a lot of women's fantasies, Larry.
See, now this is interesting. Wait a minute. Okay, as a young guy, looking at like Playboy magazine, we didn't care what those girls' names were, right? But as young women, you ladies, you had Donny Osmond or whoever. You knew their names, and we didn't know their name. Ours was Miss August, okay? So maybe that's it. The brothel doll thing is good for guys because those dolls don't have names. So the brothel dolls for women would be, Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
No doubt.
He gets a royalty, I think, for that, doesn't he?
Your book really runs the gamut from women in their 20s to, like you were talking about earlier, if they were date raped, to the healing, to women in their 40s and divorce. And then you also touched on the women who have been through menopause, and now this opens up a whole new sexual experience for them.
Yeah, it definitely does. Women who have gone through menopause often have a lot of other different issues around their sexuality. Vaginal dryness is like super common for women, and sometimes they lose their desire as well. But menopause does not need to be the end of your sex life. And honestly, Robin, this is my very strong belief. I can't document it. I think that a lot of women who are going through menopause, who are having like a mediocre at best sex life, they kind of use it as an excuse. And they're like, I'm done. I don't need to do this anymore. But I see women who have had great sex lives, menopause really not having that much of an impact on them, right? Because they know, right? I mean, and a lot of menopausal women, like they're actually at their peak of their sexuality, right? Women having sex in their 50s and their 60s and their 70s report having better sex than women in their 20s and their 30s when they're, when they are biologically have the most hormones. So I think that's like this myth that's out there about, women in menopause and your sex life stops. I mean, my sex life started when I was going through right after menopause, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm testament to it, right? You can have great sex in your 50s.
That's good news.
It's good news. It's really good news, and it's an important message to get out there, for sure.
All right, so last time we had a book that dealt with sex, and I tried to give it away. Nobody called because they're afraid they're going to come to the station and say, can I have that book called Living an Orgasmic Life? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a wrapper around this book that says, the good book, okay? And so if you win this one, just come in this and say, I won the good book, and then nobody will know that that's what this book is about. So if you would like the copy that I have, call me right now, and I'll leave it here for you, and we will put a paper on it that says the good book, or John's book, or whatever you want me to put on the cover. John's book.
This is a very healthy book. It's wonderful because a lot of questions are answered, and you do give the examples with the individual stories, and it's very, very well done. Very well done.
Thank you.
It's doing really well too on the charts here. Number 54 currently in sexual health and impotence. That's pretty good.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
Nice.
All right,
that's exciting.
All right, call me if you want the copy. I have the rest of us have to go buy it. I did find it on Amazon. It's got 5-star ratings. Do you have a website you want to recommend?
Absolutely. My website is powerofpleasure.com. Powerofpleasure.com.
If I was close enough, I'd be in Soho this evening. So, thank you, Xanet. Thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thank you, Larry and Robin. Have a great day.
Thank you. We'll be right back.